It's our good friend Josh Queipo from Pewter Report. Josh, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Jay. How about you?
Always a pleasure when you join us. And I was doing some research because you're always making us smarter on the show. Well, I'm going to make everybody else smarter on the show. Where does Queipo come from? It's Spanish origin, guys. Most commonly linked to the region of Asturias in Andalusia, considered a toponymic surname, meaning it originated from a place name, possibly a village, a state, or landmark, rather than a personal trait or occupation. There you go, buddy. Doing my research on the Queipo family name. What can you add to that one, buddy?
I can't add really a whole lot. The family lore goes that my last name shouldn't be Capo though; it should actually be Fernandez. So here's the funny thing there. What I was told, what I've been told, family lore, I have not independently verified this, was at some point when my ancestors came over from Spain, they discovered how many Fernandezes were in the United States and said, we don't want to be like that common. So great, however many grandfather, whatnot, changed his last name to his wife's maiden name, Queipo, and yes, it is much more uncommon in the United States than Fernandez. So I did know about the heritage Spain and the Andalusia province, but you definitely had way more than I do. So I appreciate you educating me on myself.
Doing work, baby. Doing work. Are you guys watching the World Cup? Are you guys big Spain fans?
So my wife is Scottish background, so she was over the moon that they were able to make it. They won for the first time, I want to say, in like over 20 years in the World Cup. So she was really excited about that. She refused to watch the Brazil match because she knew they were going to lose that one pretty easily, handily. Although I think 2-0 is actually showing pretty well.
Not bad.
Yeah. So other than that, been watching a little bit of the U.S. men's national team. And then a few days ago, I did catch Germany, Paraguay, which was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, man. I've probably watched 95% of all the matches, man. Even last night, I was locked in to the match last night. I just could not stop watching. I'm like, okay, yep, Switzerland, Algeria. Yeah, sign me up, bro. I know only 2 or 3 guys from each team, but I'm good. And I was like, oh, I remember this guy, I remember that guy. But yeah, Scotland. I have some Scotland in my background too. So my former Man United great Scott McTominay on there, and Andy Robertson and guys. So I'm always pulling for them as well. But let's talk. I mean, the big reason why I want you on the show today, of course, to see you because I miss you. But also to talk about these Buccaneers contracts, man. And let's start right at the top with Baker Mayfield. You know, the more and more I think about it, you know, I look at this whole Baker Mayfield situation, and I wonder if it's not best for each of them to kind of like wait and figure out where they're at, because I don't think they agree with what they've seen possibly so far and what it's going to cost to keep him here going forward. What's your take on the whole Baker Mayfield situation, on why we are where we're at right now, and if we could see something done before the end of the season?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's funny. I am going to toot my own horn a little bit. I kind of wrote about this before the saga started. I was like, the quarterback market before the Patrick Mahomes contract earlier this offseason had been stagnant for a couple of years. You look at that 2024 offseason, you had like the Jared Goff, you had the Brock Purdy contract. I want to say that's when Josh Allen basically took a huge discount versus where he should have been and did not move the market forward. And so what you end up with is this glut of quarterbacks who are all making about the same amount of money, $50 to $55 million. And there's a wide discrepancy on how those quarterbacks are viewed, right? Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence is making very close to what Josh Allen is making. I don't think anybody in this world is going to say Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen are similar caliber quarterbacks. Right. And so it creates this really amorphous muck that you could look at Baker Mayfield's recent production last 2-3 years, and you could make a wide variety of comps. And that's really what these contract markets are. It's a lot like real estate. It's like, find me similar production, and that's kind of going to govern what we pay this guy. So from the Bucs standpoint, they could look at some fairly recent contracts, Derek Carr in New Orleans, the Geno Smith deal with the Raiders, and there was one other I can't think of off the top of my Kirk Cousins when he went back when he was with the Vikings. And you could look at their production and say, Baker's production is really similar to this. So this is kind of where we see him market or adjust for the cap. And that would put him somewhere in like $47.5 million per year. And I firmly believe, I do not have any inside knowledge of what the offers have been back and forth, but I kind of conjectured that's probably where the Bucs are starting, right? 47.5, they'd feel really comfortable with that. By the same token, you could take Baker's production and actually compare it to Josh Allen's, believe it or not. Like the statistical lines are fairly similar. You could put him up against a couple other quarterbacks, Dak Prescott included, and make this claim. And I'm sure from Baker's side, when you adjust for this year's cap, which is over $300 million, Baker kind of deserves to be in a $60 million range. Right. And it's justifiable from those comps. So my conjecture was there's probably a $12.5 million per year difference between these two sides to start. And, that happens more often than you might think in the NFL. Like they start wide off because both sides are going to come out with, this is our opening offer where we're trying to get the best deal for our side. And then eventually the gap closes. So that's where I thought that this might start. And then you hear Baker say, we got their first offer and we're nowhere close. So I'm going to take that validation, right? I'm going to say, I think I got that one. I think the Bucs offer was below $50 million per year. And I think Baker's looking at it going, ain't no way. Like Brock Purdy's making $53 million a year. Right. I'm going to stick to my guns on that. We're not signing below 50. And I do believe the two sides are going to get closer. I think the mitigating factor here is because it's a face of the franchise quarterback contract. This isn't just a Jason Light, Mike Greenberg negotiation. I truly believe that the Glazers are going to be a big part of this negotiation. They're going to have to sign off on this deal individually, where they probably don't do that with most of the contracts that the team. They let their football people do football things, right. But this is a little bit different. And then the Glazers are a group, right? It's not one owner. You have to get everybody sign off. So that drags the feet as well. Ultimately, I don't think this deal gets done this offseason. I really don't. Like I lay the odds at more than 50% that Baker plays out the last year of his current deal, and then they reassess after the season. But I do think that for Baker, it's going to be important to get over 50 million. And I think if he can do that, if they do end up getting there, I could see a very late signing before the regular season starts, where he does ink to a deal. But I think he's going to hold true that he needs to be over 50 million, and he should be above that.
So what will factor in this season to help the argument on both sides, right? Let's say, if he doesn't have a great season, where does that contract look? What does that contract look like? If he has a really good season, and I'm not talking about an MVP season, but maybe something that we saw 2 years ago, right? Let's just say he had the contract, let's say he had the season that he had in 2024, and then the season that he had in 2025. Where do you think that, what do you think those contracts would look like, low end and high end after this season?
Yeah, if he has 2024, you're looking at 58 and above. He could hit 60 because that was a really special season, right? Like that was a really, really good season. I would say statistically, you're talking an MVP type. It was close to that type of thing. Yeah. And then the postseason success plays a lot into that. So if 2024 happens, that sways everything to Baker's side, and I would say you're looking 58 plus. If he has another 2025, I think a lot of it would have to deal with where the Bucs are picking in the draft, and how this current college, 2027 quarterback draft class, how big is it come next January, February in terms of who's available and who had good seasons because they're talking about 5, 6 different guys who could go in the first round right now, but we know that platform season can often change those prospects quite a bit. So I think that would have a lot to do with it. If he has another down year, the Bucs could just tag him, and the tag most likely wouldn't be above 50 million. So I think that they would try and string another year out of him, looking for that consistency that he kind of showed in 2023, 2024, while also keeping their options open and not necessarily committing to an extremely long-term path.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. And when you think about it, if this is one of my things of another reason why I think everybody waits is that if it goes sour this year, you're looking at a completely different team and completely different management group as far as the coaching staff next year. And who's to say that that guy's going to want Baker Mayfield, right, Josh? Like that guy could want his own dude, whether that's in free agency or maybe he wants to build with the draft. Maybe they go in the college ranks to an OC or a head coach, and that guy has experience with an Arch Manning or a Dante Moore or something like that, if they do pick that high. So I think this is a very interesting season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I feel like this is very revealing. I don't think you can kind of be even. I think you either have to exceed and really just kind of go forward and say, hey, we're moving in the right direction, or it's like, all right, time for a change. Because I don't know if the entire group, Glazers, Light, and company, are going to be okay with an 8-9 season. Do you agree with that?
I definitely don't think Light would be happy with an 8-9 season. The Glazers, I go back and forth on the Glazers and what they consider to be successful. And
right.
For the Glazers, I think they have a very standard modus operandi. They run it like a business. They don't run it like somebody who is extremely hell-bent on winning as often as possible. And so they say, these are our parameters. What can we do with these parameters? And then to a certain extent, I think they have fairly realistic expectations of what success looks like within the constraints that they provide, especially from an economic standpoint. So I've heard that, they love Todd Bowles, and but I do think 8-9, especially if they don't win the division, I think there would be enough fan uproar at that point, enough of a plateau on Todd Bowles' progress that it would spur action at that point.
Yeah. And obviously the other big name that we've been waiting for, and I watched him the other day on this sit-in, even though he was standing up, hanging out with the defensive line, is Vita Vea. What do you make of Vita Vea? Obviously, there's not a lot of guys that are like him in the National Football League, but you actually brought this up on right here on the Jay Recher podcast last year about the future of Vita Vea, and everybody's like, whoa. Well, now people are like, oh, well, maybe there was something to what Josh Queipo was saying, or Josh Fernandez, or Josh Rodriguez, whatever the heck your real last name is. But
I'm totally getting a burner called Josh Fernandez now. It's absolutely happening.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, just make sure that one doesn't get hacked too. And I still get messages from your old Josh Queipo.
Oh my gosh, I thought they deactivated that. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. It's fine.
Put it on block.
Yeah, it's fine. It's so funny. Let's answer this question before we get to the Vita Vea. What happens if the Bucs have a monster season and other teams start reaching out for Zach a la Liam Cohen? I mean, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Paul, but I think there are some people that are worried that if the Buccaneers do have success, do you let Zach Robinson walk out the door like you let Liam walk out the door, and then you're sitting in with Todd Bowles again? That's why people are kind of looking for an offensive-minded guy as a head coach, because then you don't have to worry about that type of thing. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the beast, right, though, Josh? If you have a defensive head coach,
yeah, you're depending on how the team is built, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to what does the monster season look like? There are different shapes to monster seasons. Seattle just had a monster season, right? And that was primarily fueled by their I would say legendary defense, right? Mm-hmm. They did have some offensive success, but that team was built around its defense, and Mike McDonald has received very earned praise, right? So if it looks like that, where the defense is fueling it and the offense is solid, well then, okay, people can take Zach Robinson and Bowles is secure in his future. But if that monster season is offensively fueled with an average to middling defense, then I think that the conversation becomes much louder, especially because they've seen this version happen before. Okay, we let the guy who really was propelling the team go, and then we take a big step back the following season. So a lot of that, it's qualified or camped in what that looks like, because it can take many different shapes. But to what you were talking about with Vita, yeah, that's an interesting conversation, because what you were talking about, what I brought up on your show last year was the Bucs have been preparing for life after Vita for about 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is they have not touched his contract in 2 or 3 years, right? So when you hear about restructures, guys lowering their cap hits, it's because those cap hits are being pushed into future years as dead cap hits. And the Bucs have gone out of their way to not do that with Vita Vea's contract, because and what it's set up is if they decide that Vita is not going to be on their 2027 roster, they let him play out this year. He goes into free agency. He signs somewhere else. It's a very small dead cap hit because they haven't been pushing those dead cap hits into the future. And that is typically a sign that a team isn't sold on this guy's going to be here for the next contract. Now, Vita has kind of pushed all the chips in and said, we want an answer now in the form of we're looking for a contract extension. And I don't see the Bucs doing it. I get where Vita's coming from. He's over 30. He plays a position where, you know, the athleticism can go very quickly. And he's watching some other defensive tackles get absolutely paid. Jeffrey Simmons just reset the market by a considerable amount in the mid 30s. And then Dexter Lawrence basically got a 1-year, $28 million extension from the Bengals after his trade. The thing is, Vita's different than both of those guys. Like, he's called a nose tackle, but if you actually look at his alignment splits, he doesn't play nose a ton. Like, he doesn't play heads up on the center a ton. He doesn't play the one shade very much. The Bucs use him a lot as a 3 technique, and he's a solid 3 technique, but he doesn't put up gaudy sack numbers. He doesn't put up gaudy pressure numbers. He puts up solid in both. And then he's a strong run defending 3 technique in terms of how he's used. But that doesn't profile like Lawrence, who's this just monster nose tackle, takes more nose tackle snaps than anybody else in the league and still puts up solid pressure numbers. And it's definitely not Simmons, who is one of the best pass rushing 3 techniques in the league. So it's hard to find a comp for those two. And if Vita's side is trying to comp to Lawrence, I doubt they would try and do it to Simmons. The Bucs are going to be able to swat that down pretty quickly and say, you're not the same guy. Ultimately, I do think he's a little underpaid. He's going to get about $18 million this year. He probably should be in the 21 to 22 range. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the patchwork deal they do is the Bucs just give him a $2 to $3 million raise and say, look, we'll give you an extra $3 million this year, but you're going to play out the rest of this contract. And then we'll talk next offseason. That's, I think, probably the best path forward for both sides.
So if you had to put money on it, do you think Vita's with the team after this year?
No, I don't.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because you're putting all these, you bring in Calijah, and you what do you make of the Calijah deal too? Because, they obviously look at that 5th year and they accepted it, but he's got to play, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk about Calijah, and I know a lot of his success are kind of the underlying statistics, but he's a guy that if Vita does move on, or if Vita does get banged up, they're going to be looking at him. And as he lived up to the the first round draft status so far, I think there's some people that are kind of wondering that, because he's not necessarily a consistent game wrecker where he doesn't jump off the page, I think, all the time to just a casual fan, or I don't know if he's necessarily a Pro Bowler. What do you make of Calijah Kancey and kind of his spot with the team?
When he's been on the field, he's been awesome. He really has. I mean, the way he wins, the speed, the way he can penetrate gaps, and how consistently he does it when he's on the field, like it's special. Like, when he's been on the field, I think he's been everything that the Bucs thought they were getting. It's the availability that definitely says he has not lived up to his first round billing, just simply because he hasn't been on the field nearly enough. But when he's been on the field, those flashes have been there, even as a run defender. And I know some public grading sites will say he's not a very good run defender. I will take absolute exception to those grades, because he's a very high risk, high reward type of run defender, but he can make so many plays in the backfield. He is such a force as a pass rusher. If he can put it together for a season, you will see him sign a Milton Williams-esque deal. Because let's not forget, like, Milton Williams got paid by the Patriots, and it's turned out to be a fantastic deal for New England, basically off of like 1 year's worth of production, where he was still the third defensive tackle in that rotation, right? But that pass rush juice is so valuable to defensive coordinators, and it basically creates this whole other dimension of what you can do with your defensive structures. It allows you to win with 4. It allows you to put more guys into coverage, and change your coverage structures. It's special, and he's shown he can do it in spurts. But if he can stay healthy, then I think them using the 5th-year option was a no-brainer. And if he can put that together for a full season, you will see the Bucs take the money that Vita wants and give it to Calijah on a 3 or 4 year extension.
The great Josh Queipo, Pewter Report, Josh Queipo _NFL. Keep an eye out for that burner. Joshua Fernandez from Spain. Joshua Fernandez de España with a Scottish wife. It's going to be the longest Twitter handle of all time. Josh, you're the man, brother. So glad we could get this done. Have a good 4th of July, brother. We'll talk soon.
You as well, Jay. See you, bud.
The great